Do not skip this, because what happened next changed the entire equation. Stay with this story, because the final decision has not happened yet. The story starts with a coordinated decision between two allied states to strike targets inside Iran. The goal of the opening strikes is to disrupt military systems and command structures before retaliation can organize. A conflict rarely begins quietly. The first wave of airstrikes targets air defense systems and military infrastructure. This reduces the ability to respond before deeper operations continue. Air superiority determines the rhythm of the conflict. Once defensive systems are weakened, aircraft can operate with greater freedom, allowing follow-up strikes on missile depots, command facilities, changes the pace and logistics hubs. Military actions rarely remain contained. Retaliation begins almost immediately through missiles and drones launched toward strategic targets. These responsive now extends beyond one location, touching multiple countries. Escalation follows patterns that analysts recognize. Each side attempts to strike critical infrastructure while avoiding actions that might trigger uncontrolled war. At this stage, the conflict becomes a test of endurance, intelligence, and precision. Everything shifts when both sides understand the scale of what has begun. After the first exchanges of strikes and interceptions, military then calculating the next move with extreme caution. Retaliation creates rhythm in war. Missile and drone launches test defenses, forcing opponents to reveal vulnerabilities. Each launch reveals information. Each interception exposes patterns. Layered missile defenses attempt to intercept incoming threats at different altitudes and distances. Each layer exists to reduce damage and buy time. But no shield is perfect, and every interception consumes valuable resources. War becomes mathematics. Commanders calculate strike ranges, interceptor availability, and response times. Every decision is measured against risk. Strike too hard, and escalation grows. A regional conflict rarely remains regional for long. Surrounding countries monitor their defenses and airspace. Alliances activate contingency plans. Every new launch risks drawing more actors into the equation. Everything changes when retaliation proves real. The first successful retaliatory strikes force planners on both sides to reassess their assumptions. War planning shifts from theory to reality in a single moment. Defense reveals its limits. Layered protection is key. Missile systems intercept many threats, but not all. Each interception uses time and resources. Commanders must prioritize which targets to protect. Strategy happens far from the battlefield. Military command rooms process constant streams of information. Every update of satellite communication signals. A single misreading can reshape the entire chain of decisions. Conflict spreads through geography. When missile ranges and aircraft patrol zones overlap borders, nearby countries begin activating their own defensive systems. Airspace monitorings become more creases. Behind every launch lies a calculation. Escalation rarely appears chaotic to those making the decisions. Each action is designed to signal future of war, yet every signal can be interpreted differently. Time becomes a silent opponent in military escalation. Decisions are constrained by seconds. Radar alerts appear within seconds, and interceptors must launch within moments. Delays can allow threats to breach defenses. Protection works in layers. Modern missile defense systems attempt to intercept threats at different altitudes. One layer targets long-range missiles closer to their targets. Each layer buys time for the next. War now unfolds through information as much as weapons. Satellites, surveillance aircraft, and ground sensors constantly track movement. Every signal helps commanders enter information becomes a form of control. More eyes begin observing the conflict. Neighboring countries increase monitoring of their own air coastlines. Defense systems shift into higher infrastructure. Escalation often rests on fragile balance. Every action attempts to maintain deterrence while avoiding a conflict that spirals beyond control. Leaders measure each strike carefully, yet uncertainty remains constant. Prolonged operations strain both offensive and defensive capabilities. Equipment must function continuously. Personnel must remain alert for extended hours. Fatigue becomes a quiet factor in every decision. Every incoming object begins a race against time. Intercept systems must calculate trajectory, speed, and impact point within seconds. Computers guide interceptors toward targets, moving the difference between protection and damage. Not every participant fires a weapon. Many countries observe the situation carefully, analyzing each movement without direct involvement. Observation itself becomes strategic preparation. War gradually reshapes geography. Operational planners continuously redraw maps based on new strike locations, defense coverage, and airspace restrictions. The region becomes a living map that changes hour by hour. The conflict approaches a delicate threshold. Every additional strike increases the possibility of broader confrontation. Decision-makers attempt to signal strength while still preventing or uncontrolled with each exchange. Once conflict settles into a rhythm, operations follow a repeating pattern: detection, interception, reassessment. Each cycle reveals more about the opponent's capabilities. Distance changes strategy. Missile ranges and aircraft endurance determine how far operations can reach. Long distances require refueling, navigation accuracy, and precise timing. Every kilometer affects planning. Protection rarely comes from a single system. Regional defense relies on multiple sensors and interceptors communicating across networks. Radar stations detect threats, command centers evaluate trajectories, and interceptor batteries respond. The horizon becomes an early warning line. Naval patrols and coastal monitoring expand during escalation. Ships, aircraft, and surveillance systems observe the edges. These observations provide crucial time to react. Sometimes escalation slows for a moment. Commanders analyze the outcomes of earlier strikes and prepare the next steps. These moments of evaluation. Silence often hides the most activity. During quieter moments, monitoring systems work continuously. Radar stations sweep the skies, satellites observe movement, surveillance aircraft circle distant airspace. Every strike depends on range. Aircraft endurance, fuel capacity, and missile range determine how far operations can extend. Strategic planning must account for each kilometer traveled. Distance defines possibility. Protection begins with a defensive line. Interceptor systems create invisible defensive lines across airspace. When threats cross these lines, automated systems calculate trajectories and launch responses within seconds. Observation spreads beyond the immediate battlefield. Surrounding regions begin intensifying monitoring of airspace and coastlines. Aircraft patrol crease, NAVFLIX observation zone expands steadily. Stability becomes uncertain. Conflicts at this stage often hover between stabilization and expansion. Each side evaluates whether additional actions will strengthen deterrence or accelerate escalation. Awareness becomes the most valuable asset. Surveillance networks expand rapidly during escalation. Satellites track movement from above while aircraft patrol the sky below. Each system contributes a different perspective. Detection happens in fractions of a moment. Radar systems detect objects moving at extraordinary speed. Within seconds, computers estimate trajectory and possible impact zones. The time between detection and response is extremely short. Every defensive action depends on a narrow window of opportunity. Interceptor missiles must meet incoming threats at precise coordinates in the sky. If the calculation is delayed even slightly, the interception window disappears. Nearby countries continue watching closely. Air defense systems across the region remain active, monitoring airspace continuously. Naval patrols maintain presence along strategic coastlines. The situation approaches a critical threshold. As operations continue, each new decision carries greater weight. Escalation can accelerate quickly when no one can fully predict the next move. Awareness spreads before action. During prolonged tension, surveillance networks expand. Satellites monitor entire regions while aircraft patrol airspace. Each observation reduces uncertainty. Defensive interceptors must meet incoming objects at exact sky coordinates. This moment is calculated using speed, trajectory, and altitude. Accuracy must be exact. Observation can shape decisions before weapons move. Intelligence analysts study patterns to anticipate escalation. Movements of aircraft and ships reveal intentions long before actions occur. Naval patrols monitor open water routes and coastlines carefully. Ships maintain distance while observing movements across strategic maritime corridors. These patrols provide early warning of unexpected developments. Escalation often resembles an equation without a final answer. Every action sends a signal, and every signal invites interpretation. Decision makers attempt to predict reactions, but prediction is never for last. Observation never truly stops. Surveillance systems remain active every second, scanning the sky, sea, and surrounding terrain. Continuous observation reduces uncertainty but never removes it entirely. Defensive responses must occur within extremely narrow time frames. Detection, calculation, and launch happen almost simultaneously. If the response arrives too late, the opportunity disappears. Commanders continuously reassess information from multiple sources before deciding the next step. Strategic pauses allow time to evaluate outcomes and potential consequences. This ensures decisions are based on the most current intelligence. The field of observation continues expanding. Surrounding regions intensifying of their own airspace, dace, and coastlines. Additional air grows wider with each development. Uncertainty remains the constant element. Each decision influences the next reaction, yet no side can fully predict how events will unfold. Monitoring never pauses during escalation. Radar stations, surveillance aircraft, and satellites continue scanning the region at all times. Continuous monitoring allows commanders to detect changes the moment they occur. Defense depends on rapid calculation. Interceptor systems calculate the path of incoming threats within seconds. Computers estimate speed, altitude, and direction for guiding defense moves of targets. Precision must occur instantly. Observation shapes strategy before action begins. Analysts study movement patterns, flight paths, and regional activity to understand what may happen next. These observations let commanders anticipate potential escalation.
The sea becomes another field of observation.
Naval patrols monitor coastal routes and strategic waterways carefully. Ships maintain presence while observing movement across the surrounding region. Uncertainty grows as decisions accumulate. Each move in a conflict introduces new variables. Leaders attempt to control escalation, yet every action carries unintended consequences. Surveillance systems expand their monitoring range to track activity across larger areas. Each additional observation helps commanders understand the evolving situation. Defensive systems remain constantly prepared. When potential threats appear, defensive networks calculate trajectories and prepare interceptors immediately. The response must occur within seconds. Every development requires careful assessment. Military planners review information continuously, studying outcomes and preparing possible responses. Strategy evolves as new information appears. Monitoring stands beyond the immediate conflict zone. One hand moves outward slowly, Surrounding countries intensify surveillance of their airspace and coastlines to detect any unexpected developments. The situation approaches a delicate threshold. As escalation continues, each new decision carries greater significance. The next move may determine how events continue to unfold. Decisions near the end of escalation carry the greatest weight. Commanders analyze every signal before the next step. Reports, data, and reactions combine into one final calculation. Sometimes the most important moment is the quiet one. When skies temporarily fall silent, analysts study the absence of activity. Silence can signal preparation. Observation now extends far beyond the region. Governments, analysts, and observers across the world examine every development carefully. Each action is studied for what it reveals about the next stage. Every conflict reaches a pause before the next decision. Leaders must choose, continue escalation or search for stability. Both carry consequences beyond the immediate. Some events never conclude with a clear ending. Conflicts like this remain unresolved equations, where every decision leads to another variable. Which topic should be in the next video? Comment below. Subscribe to stay ahead of the next story. And like the video if you want the full explanation.